Hey, welcome back to Highlander Heart, and this time, no Amy, I'm afraid, but Joe and I are here to talk to you about the reboot and what if. It's been a long road. It's been a long road. It's been 16 years since the reboot was mentioned first, that they were working on it, and although Chad Stahelski has had it for half of that, 8 years, that's still 8 years of three directors, two big stars, possibly three involved. Um, who knows what could have happened? It had any of those things actually worked out. We could have had. Oh, you'll see who we could have had in the lead role. And I'm sure you, if you'd been keeping up with the news, you'll know anyway. But hey, we're going to talk about it, and we're going to talk about what could have happened. So, should we dive in?
there's there's a lot of what could have happened, and maybe I guess we'll give our opinions on what we're grateful didn't happen. I don't know.
I mean, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So it all began in 2008 when the Art Markham and I forget the guy's first name, Holloway, the guys who wrote Iron Man, they basically came up with a script for this for the reboot. It's a bit of a weird one. I think it's out on the internet, so loads of people have read it. Kind of portrayed Connor as a sort of an Indiana Jones. He was like a history professor, and there was some other stuff I don't really remember. It's been a while since I read it, but it wasn't a great script. But it was enough to get the ball rolling, and enough to get our first director on board, which is where we get our first clues as to what might have been. Well, we're just going to make stuff up, right? So hot off the back of the fourth Fast and Furious movie, Justin Lin was the first director to be mentioned as helming the new Highlander reboot. It was kind of exciting at the time. The Fast and Furious franchise was starting to ramp up, and it was, he's an exciting director, big action director. Yeah, what could have been had it been Justin Lin?
Had it been just a
You
nice.
don't have to do
Do
the
it.
rest in rhyme. It's fine.
Oh wow. Okay,
They
that's
know.
gonna be fun. Um, I was okay with Justin Lin. I have I don't know if it's a soft spot, but I kind of enjoy the Fast and the Furious movies. They're crazy, silly fun, and they're good popcorn movies. Visually, they look great. Um, and they still manage to do action sequences that you can see and tell what's going on. Um, Justin Lin had not done Star Trek Beyond at that point yet. So I think it was kind of the same reaction from Star Trek fans as Highlander fans. It was like the Fast and the Furious guy is going to do a Star Trek movie, but Star Trek Beyond turned out to be really good, I thought. Well done. He made spaceships look cool. Um, I'd be okay with it. He's a pretty dynamic director. And I think it would have been interesting, much like Star Trek, to see him kind of step outside, um, kind of down to earth kind of movies. I think he could have handled it well, and it would have been a good notch under his belt to have done a fantasy movie. Although I guess maybe the Fast and the Furious movies are fantasy
They are
movies,
now.
We're in outer space!
but no, I think that would have been a good choice. It would have been interesting. What do you think?
Yeah, I think he's a good choice for a director then. I don't know that he would necessarily would have picked up on all of the nuances of Highlander. I think we'll see as we're going through these lists of directors. I think sometimes they were aimed at a specific part of the Highlander genre, if we can describe Highlander as being a genre of its own. Just because, yes, there's action, but there's also romance, and there's also kind of I don't know, like the sadness of living forever, and like the pathos again. There's a lot of different kind of things sort of mixed in there. I think he would have done the action really well, and it would have been a very different kind of Highlander movie to the first one, for sure. um I think the thing is with Highlander as well, if you look at the sequels as they go on, it was very much angled more as an action movie
Yeah.
sort of genre, wasn't it? It kind of strayed away
Yeah.
from the other bits, with the exception of like sex scenes, which sort of bring the romanticism. Really.
Yeah, it's like, what? No, no.
Yeah, so I think it would, I think it potentially could have brought the right kind of new life to the franchise, maybe. And you have to wonder who he might have brought in to the movie had he carried on making the movie. I think part of the reason why he left was, I think Fast Five came out and was a really big success, and I think maybe the paycheck just wasn't big enough anymore, or whatever. It's sort of, who knows. But I think within the confines of where he was then, we could have seen I think we could have seen Vin Diesel as the Kurgan. I'm not saying I'm not saying I approve of this.
Well, I mean, he could have done the double, the reunite the boys and had Paul Walker as Connor and Vin Diesel as Kurgan.
Yeah. Paul Walker would have been a good Connor, I think, by that. Yeah. Yeah. Again, within the confines of pitching it as an action movie, I think Paul Walker would have done a decent enough job of being there for sure.
I totally think too that, I mean, looking at the way, obviously you don't want to mimic performance and all that, so I wouldn't say that Vin Diesel could do a good Clancy Brown as Kurgan, but I think he could absolutely. I mean, watching the Riddick movies, I think he could bring something pretty interesting and menacing to it, and he's not above being able to interject humor and throw out one-liners.
Yeah.
As the Fast and the Furious proves. So I don't know. I think, at first I was like, yeah, Vin Diesel, are you kidding me? But I think it would be interesting. I think he could pull it off.
He's got the
So,
voice down. I mean, for a start,
yes.
let's not forget, he's got one of those voices, is like the register's really
Yeah.
low, so he's kind of got that going for him. And I guess I'm not sure how tall he is actually. I get the impression he's one of those people that looks big, but actually probably is quite short. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
So how tall is Vin Diesel? Yeah, 5'11". There you go. So he should.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you'd have to, obviously you couldn't have a Connor cast that was
No,
towering over him.
no, exactly.
But, and I don't know that Paul Walker would be good, but looking at, I mean, even if he had been a fan of the Star Trek movies and was thinking of trying to get involved directing, then maybe he could go with like a Carl Urban as a Connor McLeod or something like that.
Yeah.
So,
but anyway, there we go. So Justin Lin, but then he hopped in a fast car and drove away, leaving us with Juan Carlos Fresnadillo, who at that point had done 28 Weeks Later. I think it was probably either best known or most successful film that he'd done. But also Children of Men, I think, and in some good movies, and a good filmmaker, which is nice. So then it had a very different vibe. It's like, oh right, okay, now we're getting like a proper filmmaker in who can deal with action, but also has the potential to kind of look at the film's themes more, and and things like that. So that was kind of cool. And around the same sort of time, we then found out an actor who was being approached to play Connor McLeod, who doesn't fit into any of those things.
Don't tell me. Don't tell me. It's on the tip of my tongue, okay?
In Ryan Reynolds. Now, I love Ryan Reynolds. I
yes.
genuinely love Ryan Reynolds. I think he's fantastic. And I mean, again, I could see him doing a Justin Lin Highlander movie. But whether I could see him doing a more slightly sort of not entirely serious. You know, let's not forget, Connor had some good kind of like quippy action.
Okay. People are dead.
Yeah.
You know, there was some decent lines in there, but not on Ryan Reynolds kind of like level.
Yeah, I mean, at the time, I remember thinking, first of all, the director, I was like, oh, this, so maybe now they're thinking in tone more of kind of an epic type of movie, kind of like a sprawling, I don't want to say Lawrence of Arabia type of movie, but kind of in that epic vein,
Yeah.
where, you know, different time zones, and things like that. But then Ryan Reynolds, I was like, and I've been a fan of Ryan Reynolds since Two Guys, a Girl, and a Pizza Place, to be honest. I remember watching that series, and I was like, that guy is like acting heads and above everybody else on the show. He's going to go places, and he did.
Yeah.
Um, I think I don't. I've been trying to think, and I was trying to think before this. I don't think I've ever seen him in like a very serious role. And like you said, not that Connor has to be that, but I think the humor, the drive from Connor is basically coping mechanism for being an immortal, and he's always been kind of broody uh, and dark. So I don't see Ryan Reynolds going there, but maybe with the right director, and if he didn't come in with like, I need to co-produce this too and have say so on the script, if he just came in to do the job,
Yeah.
I think, but I could see him too much of like Deadpooling it too much, like, oh, this guy's been alive forever, we got to come up with some good zingers that are gonna sell that point. So
Yeah. No, exactly.
um
Yeah.
yeah, and he was attached for like a year, and I was like waiting for them to say filming had started and hoping that it wasn't, because I'm like you, I think I follow his career. I think he's a fantastic actor, but I just don't think he was right for
No.
Connor McLeod.
No, exactly. And in the end, he kind of got to do his own immortal katana
Yeah,
wielding hero in the right role. So I'm also glad that he didn't get it, because that would have potentially robbed us of Deadpool.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. So probably the best thing, I guess. But who knows? Maybe he'll turn up in a Highlander reboot sequel, or in a TV show
yeah,
like that.
yeah.
Little cameo. Uh, that would be nice.
I'd be all right with that. I mean, I think he could play an immortal. I just don't think he has for what everyone is thinking. And maybe it's like, well, this is a brand new take on Connor McLeod, and I get that. And I've always said, if you're going to do a remake or do a sequel, you got to do something different with
Yeah.
the story or the characters. But I think that would be too far afield. But yeah, I could see him playing like a sidekick immortal, or someone that shows up for the gathering or something like that. He could be a Castigator type character, without being Castigator. But yeah,
Of course. Yeah. Just like an old buddy or whatever. And just yeah, but comic relief. And
yeah,
yeah, no, definitely. No, that would have been pretty cool. Well, it still could happen. So yeah, the Juan Carlos thing, and that didn't really stick either. And before we knew it, he departed again, and it was all starting to seem a little bit dodgy. We just couldn't hold on to a director. And then came along Cedric Nicholas Troyan, and we're like, who? But
yeah,
but I mean, all props to Cedric. I interviewed him in the past, and he's actually a really nice guy and a really good filmmaker. But it's just at this point he hadn't made anything. I think at this point when he'd been offered, he'd done second. He was either second unit or he'd done second AD or something like that on the first Snow White and Huntsman movie, but then had been offered the Huntsman movie, the sequel, as director. And so it was all kind of like looking good, Here he is now directing this movie with Chris Hemsworth and Charlize Theron, and yeah, so he was attached as director, and thinking, oh, okay, well, maybe we're looking at a reboot now with Hemsworth. Maybe that's who they're gonna cast as Connor in this one. A little bit big for the role, but I mean, it's not like we're not there now with the current reboot. So it could have worked back then, maybe. And I think I've mentioned on the show before this rumor that Charlize was quite taken with the idea of playing Ramirez in the reboot. So that could have been another angle to explore too. But then The Huntsman came out, and it wasn't very good. I think it's fair to say it bombed, and I think that was the end of that. Unfortunately,
Yeah, and yeah, I was kind of like you. I was like, "Who is this?" But it kind of gave me hope that it's like, okay, so we're not looking, possibly, even though I think maybe they were, but we're not looking for someone that's a particular style, but someone that can handle these kind of movies, and not necessarily someone that, because let's be honest, I mean, when you go with someone who's been a director for a long time, you are getting their style and their brand, and not necessarily being able to work that into the type of story you want to tell. So you kind of, if you get Spielberg, it's going to be a Spielberg version of Highlander, right? It's not going to be like, oh, this is a great director who is going to make an awesome Highlander movie. It's like, no, we're asking for Spielberg. We're asking for, Francis Ford Coppola's Highlander, right? We're not doing that. So maybe they were like, here's someone that has some experience in that world. And he's not quite set, and we think we could, maybe this could be the franchise that makes him and
yeah,
pushes them forward. And Charlize Theron is Ramirez is kind of inspired. Again, do something different with the character. Don't go too far afield, but it's whether other than populating it with mostly white guys again. Let's do something a little bit different. And she's a fantastic actress. She got to go be Ramirez basically and do her Highlander movie.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Like Ryan, I kind of feel like Highlander touches these actors, in ways, and they just go off and do their own version.
Yeah,
yeah,
because
yeah,
watching her in the old guard, she really is kind of the Ramirez type
yeah.
figure in that, and it's like, man, that would have been
Mm.
pretty outstanding.
I guess around this sort of time as well, we also heard the other, probably maybe the biggest rumor. I mean, we need to talk about Dave Bautista as well, but we'll still get to that in a second. But without doubt, the biggest rumor that came out of nowhere, that made no sense to anybody, that just sounded like complete clickbait, was Tom Cruise as Ramirez. Like, okay, I mean, it's not ridiculous. The guy is, as we know, laser focused on any role he does. He's already, wielded a katana, really, really well, Last Samurai. So he could do it. Is he the right person for it? Maybe not. But a big name like that could, again, really sort of raise the franchise up and give it the kind of the kickstart it needed. But yeah, that was a weird one.
That certainly had the potential, like you said, that it's like if Tom Cruise is like, yeah, I'm going to be in this movie, and he's going to be like, this isn't going to be a $5 million movie. Let's put some money in this, and he could bring the investors and make great. I don't know. I was actually really excited by that, because despite he makes it difficult, but I really like him as an actor. His whole personal, religious, and weirdness aside,
Yeah,
he is I know everyone likes to joke. It's like, oh yeah, he's Top Gun and Mission Impossible and all this kind of stuff, but he's a very, very great actor. He's one of those actors that I can't wait when he's much older. Well, he's getting that now, but when he's much older, what kind of roles he gets. You mentioned Last Samurai. He was amazing in that. Movies like Magnolia, where he really gets to be a dramatic actor that's not a stereotypical Tom Cruise role. He does phenomenal with. So I was like, yeah, I could see him as Ramirez. Certainly not Connor. But I don't know though. He could bring the gravitas, I think, to play Connor. I mean, depends on what you're going for in your Connor. Do you want a hot young actor that's, going to bring a certain segment to the movie, or do you want someone who's really good at the role? I mean, he can do a haunted look like nobody's business, and he can just act the pants off anyone. But Ramirez, I think that would be pretty great. I mean, it's kind of parallels Sean Connery, kind of an elder statesman of actor in that role.
Yeah.
Have Tom Cruise in that, sure.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah. And very much a kind of like a Brando Superman deal of, getting just here's the budget for the movie. We'll take that, and then we'll give that to the actor who's going to be in it for about 15 minutes, and we'll divvy the rest up to whoever we can convince to come in. Definitely. That was a weird one, but yeah, it kind of was. It was kind of there and gone. There was never any official kind of like, oh, he's left the project or anything like that. It was just a sort of a flash in the pan kind of thing. But so yeah, that's interesting. And then I mentioned earlier as well, like the Dave Bautista thing was that probably came up around sort of a similar sort of time to Guardians of the Galaxy, when he they've gone, oh, hang on a minute, this big muscly wrestler guy can act. He's actually really funny,
really well,
and he's really good. So that was that as well. I mean, I still don't. I tweeted him earlier. It was a bit late. I should have done it earlier, but we need to find out whether that was an official offer that he was given, or whether, because people bring it up all the time. Dave Bautista, he's gonna, and then the news article comes back. Oh yeah, he's gonna be playing the Kurgan. I don't think he would play it now, purely based on the way he seems to want to move away from roles that require him to be big, like muscly big. And I can't blame him. The regime and the stuff you have to go through to do that stuff is insane. So, I think he's done, he's shown he can act, so he doesn't need to fall back on that now. But yeah, I don't know. I think a very different Kurgan, a very different. Could work.
What if? So then, in the spirit of what if those two things intersected, we could have had a Highlander movie with Tom Cruise's Ramirez facing off against Dave Bautista's Kurgan, and that would be really, really cool. I'm not gonna lie, that would be amazing.
So there you go. We left it there briefly as Cedric Nicholas Tryon disappeared into the background and all sort of fizzled out and went really, really quiet. And then 8 years ago, Chad Stahelski appears on the sort of back of John Wick. I mean, at that point, was it John Wick 2 maybe, or something like that?
I think so, yeah.
Coming out of Lionsgate and making a lot of noise and showing himself to be, someone to watch out for. And picked up the mantle and held on to it for 8 years. 8 years. I mean, we all know why. John Wick's successful. John Wick 2's done. Want to do the Highlander reboot? Yeah, let's do the Highlander reboot. But can you make John Wick 3 first? Yeah, sure. I'll make John Wick 3 first. Okay, so make John Wick 3, right? Can you make the 100? Yeah, we'll make the 100. But could you just make John Wick 4 first? Okay.
Yes.
Well, we'll just do that then. All right. Right,
And then I'm done. I'm done.
We make the reboot. Yeah, so yeah, we're and as we know, this year, allegedly, it's shooting, finally. And it's exciting times. So we know that we've had Henry for a large portion of that time. Not as long, but we've had Henry Cavill on there for a while.
Yeah, it's funny you say that about Chad Stahelski coming out of nowhere and stuff, because I remember by that time it was like, oh, now Chad Stahelski is going to direct Highlander, and I was like, sure. And then next month it's going to be this person. I was like, at that point, it's like, no. And then sure enough, again, things went silent for a long time, and it seemed like for a number of not a number of years, but well, maybe a few years there, where it was like occasionally there would be a mention of Chad Stahelski, who's also attached to direct the Highlander reboot. But even those articles were kind of like, if it ever happens kind of thing. So it was like, I guess he's still attached to it just because they haven't announced anyone else. So at that point though, I was like, maybe they've just like abandoned it at this point, and it's like, well, let's not worry about it. But then, of course, as we all know, things heated up again in the last few years. And not only is he going to direct it, but he's kind of the Highlander czar and is in charge of all aspects of. He's basically Kevin Feige of the Highlander franchise. Which I'm all for, and I'm excited by, and I hope because of that, we get kind of a cross-pollination between a TV series and movies where they kind of dovetail into each other and things like that. And comic books, I have a proposal. If Chad wants to talk, I would love to write a Highlander comic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, it's like as if he'll even see this, but he's busy,
wow.
right?
You never know. You never know.
You never know. But I'm excited by this. I like his sensibilities. And I had I honestly had a brush in with Chad because I think I've mentioned before I worked on the Crow film. And when they came back to finish the movie, he basically was Brandon Lee's stand-in that they CGI'd the face on, but said hi to him a few times, just like, oh yeah, that's the guy that's the new Brandon Lee. That's weird. And talked to him in the screening room a couple times during dailies and stuff like that. And so then years later, when it was like, oh yeah, he's directing this John Wick movie, I'm like, wasn't that the dude? I'm like, yeah, it was. Wow, he's directing now. Okay, let's see what he's got. So
yeah. Did Highlander. Crazy.
Yes. So yeah, I'm excited by that. Henry Cavill, I think, is a pretty fantastic actor. Even just in his Superman role, he's very good at being able to do very introspective drama and act with his face instead of have to explain everything as it's going. Plus, he just he's got the chops. And honestly, I know everyone's like, oh, he's big. We don't want The Witcher as Connor McLeod. He doesn't have to. I mean, it's not like if he's not got a role where he has to be like that he's like still doing the Superman workout every day. I mean, if everybody remembers Stardust, he was kind of a scrawny little guy in that. So I think he can tone down a little bit. I mean, you're going to want a hint of the muscles, and I'm sure, but hopefully they won't bulk him up to Superman kind of lengths for it. So
I'm sure they won't do. But the thing is, even if they did, and I think I know I've said this to people before, I don't know if I've said it on here, but Highland Warrior it's not out of the realms of possibility to have a Highland Warrior be a big guy, to be a brute.
Right.
I love the idea of, we've always sort of seen Connor McLeod as being the sort of kind of like romanticized kind of version, and and sort of being quite green on the battlefield and stuff like that. But what if you made him like a proper warrior that was just like brute strength and just like wanging his claymore around, and with no finesse and things like that, because then he's still got something to learn. He can still learn how to be a proper sword fighter. And I love that idea. So maybe they could go that direction with it, and sort of have him become more finessed as he becomes older, and whatever. So, and in terms of who is joining Henry, there's been rumors, none confirmed yet. So we currently have 2 names on the board. The first one has set the cat amongst the pigeons a little bit in Michael Fassbender. The first report that came out, we did a little video on this last month. The first came out as Michael Fassbender is going to be the villain in Highlander. And then there was another one from a guy in Collider who's just like, no, he's categorically not going to be the villain in Highlander. And I mentioned in the video, I think maybe they're both right. I think maybe he's a villain in Highlander, but not the villain in Highlander. We all know Chad loves to world build. That's his thing with, we've seen it in John Wick. So if you're going to go into this beginning of what you want to be a huge sprawling franchise, then you're going to be putting more players in that first movie that you can spread out. So we don't need, yes, we can have like a big main Darth Vader villain. But we can have some Moff Tarkins in there as well. We can put some other sort of Machiavellian kind of characters in that will then propagate sort of further ahead. So if I think if Fassbender is in the movie, I think he's certainly not playing a Kurgan, but I think he could play somebody else.
Do you think he'd be Corda or Reno?
Yeah. More of a Corda. It's a Highlander 2 joke. So
yes.
For anybody who's never seen Highlander 2, and I'm sure there are plenty, been scared away. Don't be scared away. Give it a try.
Give it a shot.
Yeah. So that's interesting. I think he'd be a great addition, interesting addition to the franchise for sure. Really good actor, brilliant actor. And the other name that we've heard a few times is Ana de Armas as a character in and one would suspect, well, let's say she's not going to be playing Heather if Heather's in the movie. Maybe she's Brenda. Maybe she could be a Brenda. And maybe she's somebody else. I don't know. Who knows? But I think, another good, she's worked with Chad before, and again, we all know that directors like to pull people in that they like and they sort of think work. And on that basis, it's a good segue, I suppose. Who else from I'd say Chad's other movies, but let's be honest, who else from the John Wick movies could we see coming in to the reboot in roles, for better or worse?
Ian McShane as Ramirez.
Yeah, I mean that's yeah. That yeah. Kind of like what we were saying with the Fast and Furious in a way, is if you could almost bring John Wick into the Highlander with all of the cast there and go, okay, well that's Ramirez.
Exactly.
There's you this, there's you that. Yeah. And of course, we've already had in the last movie alone, we already had 2 people from the Highlander franchise in the movie as well. And we know, we know Chad's a big fan anyway. There was McLeod's bar in John Wick 3 and stuff. Ian McShane, good shout for Ramirez for sure. Do we think we're going to see Keanu? I think there are a lot of people kind of there.
I would cast Keanu in the basically an analog of Castigair. I wouldn't make him Castigair because you don't want to whitewash a character, and that would just be horrible. But make him a brand new character that Connor meets up with in modern day, and maybe we see in flashbacks he's the one that egged him on to do the the Duel of Boston Commons or something like. He's been the guy that gets him in trouble all the time, and
Yeah.
now he's all freaked out because it's the time of the gathering and he doesn't think he's going to make it or something. I don't know, but some kind of small role like that, I think would be great. I mean, you got to have him in there. Come on.
Yeah. Well, that's the great thing, I suppose when you've got someone like Chad who's worked with a lot of great actors, Lawrence Fishburne, and there's so many good actors in the John Wick movies. There's lots of potential to have some favors called in, just for small parts maybe, or just and things like that. So
and maybe if you're doing a TV series or even in the series of movies, if you want to have Amanda in there, Chad reaches out to Carrie Ann Moss maybe and sees if she's up for that. I mean, her second chance maybe with Highlander.
exactly.
She may be a little burned, but
exactly, yeah. And for those who don't know, as we found out in an episode a few episodes ago, that she actually tested for a role in the TV series. Yeah, so that, yeah, exactly, get her back.
Yeah,
that'd be pretty cool.
it's like, well, here, we're going to give you here's your callback on your audition all those years ago.
It's just
we'd like to
few years later.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. She's doing great stuff. She was in the trailer for Acolyte recently, the new Star Wars series. And
yeah,
I mean, do thinking about it, if you're going to get a big cameo in from maybe one of the characters in John Wick or something like that, get him in as Fazil in the first fight. Because how like movies love to do that sometimes. You introduce like look, here's this actor, and he'll be in all the press and the posters and things like that. And he's in it for like 5 minutes. But yeah, maybe bring Keanu on for that.
Oh, yeah, Keanu. I was going to say Keanu would be great because it's like, oh, it's John Wick. Nothing's gonna. Oh, oops. Wow, that was unexpected. So yeah, absolutely, that would be great.
The trouble is, everybody would then hate Connor. Like, you're watching the movie, you would just hate it because
Yeah.
he just chopped off Keanu's head. Everyone loves John. Everyone loves Keanu.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would be me, I guess. It probably wouldn't.
And then Fazil's dog avenges him, kind of flip things around,
Definitely. Oh boy. Yeah. I don't know. So there we go. I guess that's where we're at. That's 16 years of Highlander reboot and what ifs, and now we're into what if this actor comes into the reboot, and what if there's a TV series, and what if there's another animated series, what if there's an animated movie. So many possibilities now. Let's be honest, it all hinges on whether the reboot works, but we have to hope it will, and I don't see why it won't. It has all of the ingredients you need. Here's the first opportunity we've really had to start from scratch and go, right, okay, let's do this properly. Let's think of it as a big franchise, potentially, but let's just let's do this right, and just it's so that's exciting in and of itself. So
exactly. Yeah.
I guess we'll see.
I think we'll do it. I think this year
absolutely.
we'll get it. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. So stay tuned, guys. We will always be here for any news or whatever. As soon as anything comes to light, we will jump on and let you all know what's going on. Well, you found out, but you get to hear us talk about it endlessly, so that's always a plus. And as which reminds me, is you've got your background up there as well, which I never actually really mentioned. If you want to keep up to date with Highlander news and things like that, and talk about the old series and the franchise and all of that stuff, head on over to Facebook. We've got a group on there. I've had it there for about a gazillion years. And it's it's always a good place to and it doesn't get too full of all of the, hey, I think he should play that, I think he should play that, which some of them do. It's a fairly well-rounded group, and we're all very friendly there for the most part.
Yeah.
So come along. And also, again, while we're doing a bit of housekeeping, thank you to the patrons. I really appreciate all of your work in helping support us to do this. We couldn't do it without you. Again, if you want to be part of that as well, you'll always get the videos early. Sometimes we throw some other stuff up there, like my interview with Michael Ironside is currently sitting on there. And a few people have watched that, actually. It's a really good interview, though. But yeah, go check it out and help us out. That'd be amazing. So yeah. Well, with that, we'll see you again soon. Thanks for tuning in. And until then, hold fast.
And don't lose your head.